Hey, what's shaking? My name's Cam, welcome back to another video. So as I'm sure you guys already know, AI has taken enormous technological and cultural leaps within the last year or two. I'm not going to go into the ethical concerns regarding AI, especially with AI art, because that's not what this video is about. But what I do want to talk about, at least a little bit in today's video, is how AI can impact authors making books right now. AI generated book covers is one thing, but we're also on the precipice of having access to AI generated or narrated audiobooks, and very likely at some point in the future, AI written books entirely, where you just put in your idea for a story and it will generate the rest. Thanks in large part right now to a little resource called ChatGPT, which we'll get to in a bit. So rather than just tickling your bean through the whole video, I'll give you a spoiler alert. None of those resources that I mentioned, including ChatGPT, are in a state right now where they could feasibly replace authors or audiobook narrators, or I would say even artists to a certain extent for book covers, or at least replace them convincingly, especially if you want any of the characters on your book covers to have hands.
What the hell? My God, no way.
However, AI is machine learning, and the rate at which it's learning right now is pretty remarkable, whether you think that's a good thing or not. The truth is that no matter where we land on this, ethically or morally, AI is kind of a runaway train at this point. I don't think there is really any way to stop it from the advances it's having, outside of regulation, but when you get into government regulation with open source technological advances like this, it's a whole thing. I just don't know if that's realistic to expect going forward. Personally, when it comes to AI, I'm pretty fascinated by all of this. To me personally, it feels like we are right now living within a very brief window of time. The very brief window of time before there's a huge change, something that kind of shakes up everything. It's kind of insane to me to think that I was alive in the time where the internet existed, but it wasn't the integral thing that we know it as today, where it was necessary in pretty much all facets of life. When I was a kid, it was dial-up internet, where you couldn't even use the home phone at the same time as the internet, and it took a whole minute to load a single picture on the screen.
One kiss is all it takes.
I was in high school when we made the huge switch from, flip phones and phones just quite literally just being phones to smartphones, which we know now are pretty much a necessity. Everyone has one because we're kind of obligated to function within today's society. And maybe not to the extent of the literal internet or smartphones, but I do feel this AI thing, we're about to go into a huge change, something that kind of changes the world. I think AI is going to impact pretty much every industry in big ways, and I actually think that's going to happen really, really soon. I am, of course, concerned as well about AI. I don't like the idea of creative jobs being pushed out by computer programs, especially when it's already so hard to make a living as an artist, whether that's, a writer or a musician, an actual painter or graphic designer. It deeply concerns me that automation could happen to such an extent that even arguably the most human thing about us as humans, our ability to create art, could be monopolized by tech companies. It's worrying. That's something I think about. However, I am still fascinated by AI and where it might go. I don't think it's entirely unplausible that AI could make it easier for people to create art or books, people who might not have had the means to do that before now. I think it's too early to say for sure what's going to happen with this whole AI, industry shift, but I am interested to see what you think about it all, because the debate on this has been very spicy. What do you think about AI in particular in the book industry going forward? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. But hey, don't go anywhere, the video is not over. So that's my little spiel about how I personally feel about AI and how it's going to potentially impact the book industry. But the second part of this video is I actually want to give you a bit of first-hand experience. I want to show you what this AI is actually capable of, because when we talk about what AI can create, it's very easy to just, kind of wave it off and not think too much of it. I'm going to be showing you a resource called ChatGPT, and when I first heard about this, I kind of did exactly that. I was like, oh yeah, I'm sure it just kind of, generates some hackneyed like chatbot kind of response for whatever you type in. But I've given it a little bit of a play around already, and it is honestly kind of insane. People are using ChatGPT to generate almost anything that you could need generated in a writing sense. I'm talking about like book and movie reviews. You could generate blurbs for a book. You could generate ideas for pretty much anything. For an essay, you could have it generate an entire essay if you really needed it. People are using ChatGPT to generate computer code. It's just crazy, and you'll see that in just a second. So this right here is ChatGPT. You get a little bar to type your prompt in, and then it will generate it for you. You can type in pretty much whatever you want. It's got a bunch of examples here. Explain quantum computing in simple terms. For example, if I wanted it to, let's say, type a short review for The Lord of the Rings. Boom. Let me just move this down a bit. There we go. The Lord of the Rings is an epic fantasy novel written by J.R.R. Tolkien. The story is set in a fictional world called Middle-earth and follows Hobbit Frodo Baggins as he embarks on a perilous journey to destroy the One Ring, an artifact created by evil Lord Sauron to conquer all Middle-earth. Along the way, he is joined by the fellowship of other races, including elves, dwarves, and humans, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. The novel is rich in world-building, complex characters, and thrilling action. It is a true masterpiece of the fantasy genre, and a must-read for any fan of the genre. Now, hearing that, I know your first thought's probably going to be, oh, it probably just took snippets from, Wikipedia or other reviews, that kind of stuff, and yeah, that's very likely what it did. But I think the crazy part of AI like ChatGPT is how it's able to format that into a believably human response. I'll give you another example. Let's have the AI generate me pitch me a fantasy story about a goblin who falls in love with a cave troll. I feel like that's unique enough that it's not just going to be able to pull random snippets of information from different like Wikipedia articles or whatever, so hopefully we should get a pretty unique response. Let's see what happens. And here we have it. You can pause the video to give it a proper read if you want, but I'm just gonna summarize this for you because it's kind of, again, just keep in mind that an AI computer, a set of data generated this. So my prompt was, pitch me a fantasy story about a goblin who falls in love with a cave troll. And what the AI came up with was a story in where a goblin named Grom is bullied by his fellow goblins because he's an outsider, he's an outcast from them, and as a result of the bullying, one day he's out walking around and he runs into a cave troll named Grot, who he very quickly gets an attraction to. And an interesting part about what the AI has generated here is that it kind of points out that the reason there was an attraction there is because of the kindness of the cave troll, which is something that the goblin was kind of an alien to, again, being an outcast who was bullied by his fellow goblins, etc., etc. Their love is not accepted by the other trolls and the goblins, but then they're all attacked by a dragon, and they overcome the dragon together by bringing together the two separate races, and everyone lives happily ever after. Pretty simple, but again, still kind of insane that this is something that was just whipped out of thin air by a set of data. This is what I'm talking about. And again, the most important thing to point out here is that this pitch, as simple as it may be, is formatted and written in such a way that it is very believably human. The one drawback that AI has always had with stuff like this, with especially writing stuff out, is that it doesn't sound like it was written by a human, no matter how good or bad the idea is. But this seems like it could have very well been typed out by a human. ChatGPT can, as I said before, pretty much write anything for you, not just like story prompts or reviews. For example, I could write, give me an idea for a YouTube video about fantasy books. So my prompt was, give me an idea for a YouTube video about fantasy books, and not only did the AI give me the title and the basic idea for the video, which is the evolution of fantasy literature from Tolkien the modern day, that's the idea, and the AI could have left it at that. Not only did it do that, but it also goes into a thoroughly in-depth set of instructions for how to make the video, what topics to cover, what themes to discuss. Seriously, pause the video, have a read of this, and just... it's insane. This was not written by a person. It tells me I should give book recommendations within different subgenres. It also, at the very end, it tells me exactly why this video is valuable to fantasy book lovers. What's my point with today's video? Well, first and foremost, I just kind of wanted to talk about AI. It's something I'm very interested in, for better or for worse. Like I said, I am concerned, I do have my concerns, but also because I think this is going to have a very profound impact on the writing industry, on the book publishing industry, and that's an industry that I'm hoping I work in. I'm hoping I have a career in, you know, so it's something I want to talk about. I wanted to give some of my personal opinions in today's video, but I also wanted to show you a clear example of how this is happening and what you might expect going forward, because again, as you've just seen from ChatGPT, that's the early stages. Imagine where it's going to be in a year or two from now. It's just, I think it's not entirely unplausible that it could feasibly generate an entire fantasy story. Who knows? Maybe I'm just, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but it just seems... more than likely, it seems inevitable to me. What do you think? Do you think AI is going to be good or bad for us and for the book industry? Are you excited? Are you scared? Let me know. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I make plenty of videos about fantasy books, so if that's your kind of thing, then please do stick around. Otherwise, I've got, a huge catalog of videos about fantasy books over on my channel. Go check it out. Thank you so much for watching, especially for watching through the whole video. You are my favorite. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Catch ya.